Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I am Josh.
And I'm Matt, and today we're going to be reviewing Batman vs. Amy, the movie.
I would like to introduce.
Hey guys, me and Josh went to go see Gone Girl over the weekend, and if you don't know what Gone Girl is, you probably shouldn't be watching this. There might be light spoilers.
Or heavy.
Or heavy spoilers, depending on how we feel. It's just a power grab, I don't know. So, we went to see this movie. I don't know, did you know anything about the movie ahead of time?
I had no clue. I went with a friend. She asked me to go with her. I said, all right. And, I had no premonitions going in.
Absolutely. I had no clue what it was until
I think I used premonitions in the wrong context.
Possibly. I had no clue what it was going in. It was just a Ben Affleck movie.
Literally the reason
were like pouring over.
The reason you saw it is because it was like, hey Matt, this movie is awesome. And that's all I told him.
Exactly. I had no clue what this movie was going in, and it was just like, let's just go ahead and go see a movie I don't know about, which is actually kind of refreshing.
It is exciting. I've done that several times. I did that for Life of Pi.
Mm-hmm.
My mom just drugged me to it, and I was like, okay, Mom was paying for it.
Yeah.
I was like, Life of Pi, a great movie. Feelings, what did you feel when you left the movie theater after seeing Gone Girl?
I felt really confused, really divided. Now,
Yes.
this is the problem with this movie. Is it's very divisive. People are either on one side of the spectrum or they're on the other. I'm in the middle, and that's what kills me about this movie.
I am on the spectrum that says this movie is fantastic, that it's possibly one of David Fincher's best work. I absolutely loved it. And Matt's the oddball. He doesn't hate it nor love it.
I'm just kind of iffy about it. I mean, I'm not like iffy. Fantastic movie, but I can understand why people hated it. And I can understand these points. Now, let's talk about David Fincher's work before we get into actually talking about Gone Girl. Now, David Fincher has done Fight Club.
7.
He's done 7, right? He's done all these great films. He's done Curious Case of Benjamin Button. He's done something else.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff.
He's done a lot of
stuff. And a lot of iconic movies.
Right, a lot of hit movies. And Gone Girl was one of those movies that I think people, especially now, are really generating early Oscar buzz and that kind of stuff for it. They're really into this movie. Mm-hmm. And it was really talked about, but the crazy thing is it's one of those movies that a lot of people talked about it, but I didn't hear anything about it and didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, I didn't even hear people talk about it. I knew absolutely nothing going in. I think that's probably what will hurt it the most is its lack of exposure. And I think, over time, like me telling you, go watch this movie, it's really good, it's going to generate. I think it's going to find its place in a good, large cult following. I don't think it's going to blow up and become, the next Gravity. I mean, I'm saying Gravity because of the amount of awards it won. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be more of the Dallas Buyers Club of the universe.
Right.
A very fantastic movie, but that's kind of pushed off to the side, and they'll get Best Actor award or something like that.
Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, they'll get something like that.
But so do you want to open up with the story a little bit?
Let's start off. We take it to Missouri. Mm-hmm. We start off in Missouri, and the scene starts off with Ben Affleck running out of the house or something like not running, going out of the house.
He goes into the bar.
He goes into the bar, which he owns, and you meet his sister starting off, and that instantly shows a dynamic between him and his sister. But there's a very powerful line that starts off even before that, the opening credits are about to roll. He says...
The narration.
Yes, the narration by Ben Affleck. You see Amy, his wife, at his feet, and he's like, I always want to know what she's thinking. I just want to crack her skull open and know what's inside.
Yeah, he says it very morbidly, too. He's talking about, he says every married couple, he said, I want to bash her skull in, rip her skull apart, pick apart her brain and see what she's thinking. So
that kind of sets the tone for the first act of the movie, and it creates the tension. The tension is there from the get-go. You're on ease. Not on ease because it in itself is suspenseful at first, but the fact that you have no idea what's gonna happen. Obviously, there's gonna be some sort of abduction. It's gonna be like a Taken experience where Ben Affleck says, "I have a specific set of skills."
But no, it doesn't turn into generic action movie. It's straight up a thriller through and through. It's classified. If you go on IMDb, classified as a thriller, and is a thriller through and through. It's about the psychological aspect of this movie,
and it'll take a psychological toll on you.
It will.
It will.
It's so when you go into the movie and not expecting anything, right? It's kind of like a slice of life to begin with. He goes into the bar named The Bar.
Yes.
Meta, very meta.
They even say that in the movie.
Yeah, as the detective explains.
I don't feel like she knows that we're meant, but it's okay.
So anyway, he goes into the bar and he's talking to his sister Margot, and he's just like, "Oh my God, it's our 5th anniversary.
I hate being married."
Yeah, I hate being married, right? And then so he goes through and he's talking to her. He's playing a board game with her, right? Because apparently he goes and buys a board game for their anniversary and plays it. He got
her Margot a gift of a board game, and she just tosses it in the pile, and then they actually start playing.
They played the game of life, right? And so, which is kind of funny.
Yes.
So anyway, he goes and he's like telling the story of like there's underlying narration where he's just like, "I hate my wife," but then there's also, "We used to be so happy," and then cue flashback.
Yeah, it's like the setup is you have what's going on right now, like current times. You have his flashbacks. Then you have Amy's diary, which you're reading through. And you're getting, these 3 separate, not separate, three different points of view almost.
Right.
We get the third person perspective. We get the first person.
Very Memento-esque in that whole asset. This is like they take pieces of the story from different characters' perspectives and they kind of like piece it together. Kind of like, there's kind of like Game of Thrones type stuff going on there where it goes from one character's perspective to the next, but it's all in the same.
Now, you were talking about how you thought this movie was basically overrated. Like, people were hyping it up too much. What point in the movie did you get that sense? Like, when was it?
So I want to go see it with a friend too, right? And he said that the part that was in the middle, right? So you're going through the story, and in the middle, you think it's going to end, but it doesn't. And that happens a lot in movies, and I like it when it happens in movies, but the problem is when you think it's going to end at the 1.5 hour mark and the movie's 2.5 hours long, I have a problem with that. It feels like it's going to end, and they wrap it up in a nice little bow almost, and then they just kind of keep going with it. It's kind of like chugging along at this point. But now, there are some good parts after you think it's going to end. Mm-hmm. But it's still, you are kind of in this experience where you're just sitting there and it's progressing still, and you're just like, I thought this was going to end 1.5 hours ago when you walk out of there. So that was my biggest complaint with the movie. Also, I wasn't huge on the ending, and we'll get to the ending when we discuss.
The ending was very frustrating for me.
It was frustrating. It's always frustrating when those types of endings happen, but
I think the biggest, the reason it's so frustrating is because there's no real resolution, and we as viewers demand absolutes. We love absolutes.
There's
any time there's any interpretation at the end, it always makes it frustrating for people.
Well, also it's like, okay, so the Christopher Nolan films,
mm-hmm.
right? Those are open to interpretation. Ending of almost every Christopher Nolan film is open to interpretation, and I like that. But this ending, there was no resolution to the problem at hand. Everything just kind of, the world just kept on ticking. It was just no, they didn't solve the problem. There was no problem solved. I'm not sure the character's feelings about the problem not being solved, except for the sister character. And it just kind of daily life went on as it was supposed to.
All right, we've been talking a lot, criticizing it so far. I want to say something positive about it.
Okay.
I think the aspect of the girlfriend, not Amy, his mistress, who you find out is a student of his, I'm glad they kind of kept that as holding on, because that's right when you're getting to the 1.5 hour mark, and then they're like, boom, this happened. You know,
So,
you didn't know it.
So we were setting it up earlier, and that actually kind of leads into it. So, so when we were setting it up, he was having the flashbacks. And so they go back, right? And he's talking to Amy. He first meets Amy. And he's talking to her, and he's just like, oh, I fell in love with her, basically. It was like love at first sight for him, basically. But she was the cool girl, right? She kept using that word, the cool girl, in her own words. Well, you find out that her parents are rich. She's kind of hoity-toity, Harvard, graduated from Harvard, Yale, all this good stuff, has multiple PhDs. So her and him, he's kind of like a journalist or something, like he's a writer as well.
A failing writer. And he fails even more. And so what happens is, she's the cool girl. She wants to be that girl. But he says, well, who am I? I'm the guy who's going to marry you, right? I'm the guy who's going to woo you. And so they go to this banquet dinner, and he says, will you marry me, basically? And she says, yes. So that part of their marriage is great. The first 2 years, I think it was, or the first 3 years or something like that was great. Something like that. About halfway through.
Yeah. And then it started falling apart because what happened was he wasn't interested in Amy anymore. He was interested in this other girl. And that's when it's funny because throughout this entire thing, you get the narration of, I was in love with him, blah, blah, this, that, one thing. And so it reveals in the present day that he has an affair at his sister's house, right?
That was freaking crazy.
Yes, he's having an affair at his sister's house. While, I might add, that his wife was missing, and they called the news, and they called the cops.
It makes you think, especially in the moment when you don't know the ending, it makes you think, am the guy I was possibly going to root for? Because in the beginning, you're not really rooting for anybody. You don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Then they're like, you might have done it, and everything looks like he did do it. And then you find out about the cheating, and you're like, Ben, what are you doing?
Yeah, and you hate that character.
You hate Ben for a little bit, and you're like, where is this going? Is this going to just turn into another, like, multiple personality disorder kind of thing, like Fight Club? Where is this going to go? And I think that's good for the movie. And then you find out, he's good. You find out that it was actually Amy, like, she didn't kill herself. And I think that's the part you're talking about, where they should have ended it when she was, thought when she was driving on the bridge for the first time. When you see her in the first time.
That, to me, felt like an ending. Like, okay, so it was leading up this huge tension, right? This huge amount of tension. And you're just sitting there on the edge of your seat. Like, did he do it? Did he do it? Because let's be fair here. Ben Affleck's character was an asshole in the movie, right?
Complete, like, throughout.
Throughout, right? You just hated
in the beginning, we might have, like...
He was okay, but then you find out about the cheating and stuff like that. So, when his sister Margot finds out about the cheating, her diary finally catches up to where she finds out a little bit. She realizes he's not loving her anymore. Yeah. Which is really interesting, because it happens, in the present day and in the past, too. They both find out that
it kind of coincides.
Yeah, he doesn't
love
his
part.
wife.
That's like when they part. This
so it goes through that, and then it keeps talking. Like, she keeps talking. Amy keeps narrating, saying, "This is how it is. Like, he doesn't love me anymore." And the final line that she narrates is, "I think he may kill me." And you're like, "Wait a sec, what?" And so it shows the scene where she is driving on the bridge,
but she's not upset. And she's not hurt. She's
not upset and she's not hurt. She is literally trying to get back at him for cheating on her and for not being interested in her anymore.
And, you can pick sides. You can be like, well, maybe Amy was justified in leaving him. I think definitely in leaving him. But not trying to get the guy killed, framed, and murdered.
Because there's the death penalty.
For a crime he didn't commit.
There's a death penalty in Missouri. They even say that. And it's like... Yeah.
They had a prenup. There was no reason for her to do this.
She's trying to frame him for murder, and you're like, this bitch is crazy. Like,
and from that point on, that's the suspense kind of dies out.
That's the problem. That's what I was talking about. Where I thought it ended right there is because that was a end note right there. That was the rising action of the tension. Right, and then it finally hit like her driving away is the climax, and you're thinking, okay, there needs to be a little bit of falling action, but the next hour is pretty much falling action, and it kind of dips into like a little roller coaster ride. It goes like this kind of, and it's just
one of my favorite scenes was in the final act.
Okay,
when Neil Patrick Harris gets his throat slit.
Right,
I thought
so-
that was the most gruesome part.
So Neil Patrick Harris is introduced.
Yeah.
And he was introduced a little bit earlier, but they kind of touch on it because he hires my man Tyler Perry. Like, Tyler Perry, it's so crazy. I hate Tyler Perry.
Yeah.
Like, with a burning passion. But this movie, I saw it and I'm just like, I like Tyler Perry.
He wasn't bad at all.
He was really good. So Ben Affleck figures out, right? Because the cops get the diary, and he's like, he killed his wife, and he figures out that she framed him. So he hires Tyler Perry, who's like a super awesome defense attorney,
who actually like has been in these cases many times before with
right.
wives like defending husbands of spousal abuse and murder.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, so he hires him, and then he says, "Go to her ex-boyfriends, go to anyone she's had contact with." And Neil Patrick Harris she goes to him after he goes to the first one, and he goes, Neil Patrick Harris, who is the stalker.
Yeah, he was like, you're introduced to him, and he's like the guy who shows up at the banquet
benefit,
or whatever,
yeah.
the benefit for Amy, and it gives you an unsettling thing. One, because you don't know anything about this character, Neil Patrick Harris. I personally think he was the most underutilized character. He's a great actor, and he was very, like, I've seen him in How I Met Your Mother, and he was, it was a comedy, and he was this, like, slut or whatever. Basically, that was his entire character, was he was a slut.
Yeah.
In this one, he takes on a very serious role, and I feel like they should have at least attempted to make his character a little more involved, because all he did was get Amy back to where she began. Like,
well,
he closed the loop. But I feel like he should have had a bigger role than that for Neil Patrick
I feel
Harris.
like it wasn't a big enough, like you said, it wasn't a big enough role, but the on-screen time that he had, he wasn't used very well. It was just through
It was Amy talking while he happened to be there.
Yeah, so I don't know, that might have been intentional, because just to see how manipulative Amy is, but it goes, whenever she moves, right, she gets out of the state. And
I like when she got robbed.
Yeah, she gets robbed, right? And
it's pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome because you're like, take that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So anyway, she gets robbed, and then she goes to Neil Patrick Harris because she's a manipulator of people. That's her character. She's just manipulative as all get out. And so she goes to Neil Patrick Harris and says, "Hey, look, I know you love me, blah, blah." And he's like super rich now, so he's like, "I'll take you to my townhouse in the lake."
Which is a pretty awesome house.
It's a pretty legit house, yeah.
Awesome.
So she takes him there, and he's just like, "I'm never going to let you leave again, Amy." Like, and you're just like, what? I added the tone, but I mean, it's still, he's that creepy. So he takes her, and he's like, "I'm never going to let you leave." And then she's like, "I got to solve this." So slits his throat.
But while he leaves the house, she pretends to get raped by him.
She gets
by shoving like a wine glass up her rectum and then like bleeding everywhere, and she's like, "Oh God!"
Yeah, she takes
for the camera so the police officers can find videotape. And so it leads you on this chase, and like Matt said, it goes forever. It never seems like it's going to end. And then finally, the police officer and Tyler Perry figure out with Ben that she was setting him up. They all figure that out.
She was okay. So she says this line in this movie, and it blew my mind.
Who,
okay?
Amy?
Yes.
Okay.
And it blew mine and Cameron, who I saw it with. It blew both our minds. Well, it kind of blew mine more than his. But anyway.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. So she says, "I did it all for you. I killed for you."
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting there thinking, was this her plan all along, or did she just get screwed and then came
I think
back?
she's just really good at improv.
I mean, she could be, but it makes you think. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is there's that little doubt in your mind that says, was she manipulating everybody just to get her marriage with Ben Affleck? Why?
I highly doubt that.
Was she that crazy? I mean, she's crazy, right?
I think she's crazy enough to kill for herself. I think that's the ascent. I think she'd be less crazy if she did it just to save their marriage. Because I mean,
it's just it's a crazy ride all throughout, and it's just the end, right? We were talking about the ending earlier. So the ending of the movie was where he goes and he's like, I'm not gonna stay with you, and she's just like, a battered wife. The media would hate that, if you left me. So he ends up like, okay. So the next day she's just like, I'm pregnant. And he's just like, what? I didn't even have sex with you. And she's just like, oh.
Sperm bank.
She's like, oh, I'm pregnant. And he's just like, it's not mine. I want blood tests. I want blah, blah. And she's like, I love tests. Go ahead and run them. It's yours. And he's sitting there like, ah. And then the audience is sitting there going, ah. Because he's stuck. And so he tells his sister Margot, right? He's like, look, I'm stuck. And she's just like crying on the floor. She's like, I'm with you, blah, blah. And he tells him like, I'm stuck, basically. And so the ending of the movie is the same thing. It goes full circle. At the beginning, he says, I want to know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And you're like...
But for a different reason than we previously assumed.
Exactly. And it's just... The ending had... To me, the ending had no resolution. It just had the whole... It tied the story up to where it's like... And they lived not happily ever after.
Do you think that... I mean, I've read a few reviews and people were saying, you know, is this movie a modern critique or commentary on the modern marriage? And I personally am going to say no. I think it's a movie that delves into more of selfish human ambition. I don't think it has... I think the marriage was used as a device that could relate to any relationship about people who manipulate for their own benefit and don't see a problem with that. Because Amy, not once did she question herself. And I think, you know, there's a little bit of Amy in all of us.
Oh, I don't know if I caught that, but I think the movie is kind of like a slice of life to the extreme psychological thriller. It's like a newer thriller, and you don't get a lot of those anymore. You don't get a lot of these thriller type.
And Thriller is one of my favorite music videos and genres of all time.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it's one of these movies where you look at it and you like can dissect it and stuff. And it's one of those like I think it's a slice of life type thing where it goes to the extreme. It doesn't. I don't think it's like a allegory for the modern marriage.
Yeah, I
don't
think so.
I just think it's just straight up life in general can sometimes go to these dark places where Amy happens to be. You know, Amy could be, you know, like you said, a little bit Amy in all of us. It could be where Amy is the dark side of every type of human or whatever. And
interaction.
And then Ben is the most like realist feeling in this movie was the feeling that Ben Affleck was stuck in his life and he couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
No escape. And I think we've all felt that at one point in time.
And he, you know, I think it also shows because, okay, the girlfriend, I think, represents a youthful ambition and the feelings of passion.
Like the reinvigorating of life.
And he used the girlfriend to escape from his utterly destructive marriage, which he didn't realize how bad it was really going to get. But in the end, what does he choose? He chooses stability and his child over youthful passions. I think that shows a maturity on one hand and then a sadness on the other, because you almost wanted him to end up with the girlfriend because that's when he was the happiest and you want Ben to be happy. But he didn't choose happiness. He chose what's going to be best for everybody else, which kind of shows selflessness. But then the rest of the movie showed his selfishness with the cheating.
He was kind of redeemed at the end when he said, I'm going to stick with my kid, because it shows, like you said, selflessness. It's that feeling of stuckness, right? Mm-hmm. Even though, you know, he's like, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm done with this. She said, we have a baby together. And he's just like, you know, that's what holds a lot of marriages together is having kids.
Yeah.
And like we said, it's not about marriage. I think it's just about that feeling of being stuck in life. But also another thing that I really liked about the movie, and we didn't touch on yet, is the fact that when I said it's a slice of life, not only was it just Ben Affleck's life, it was the media. It shows how the media...
And how manipulative they can be, too.
How the media blows stuff out of proportions. And I came out of that theater after watching it thinking, wow, maybe these stories that I see on the news aren't as bad as they seem.
Possibly. Or they're worse and they're not saying anything.
Exactly. It could.
You never know.
They're
watching.
Exactly. the Hydra. But yeah, it's like the media was a big part of that movie too, because it swayed. It was the deciding factor for Ben to stay with her because it looked bad.
The media carried the second act of the movie.
Exactly. The media
should get a Best Actor award.
Exactly. Bill O'Reilly, Christiane Amanpour. Let's just go ahead and have these people get awards.
Rush Limbaugh too. Let's just give him one.
So all in all, what did you think of the movie as a cohesive whole?
As a cohesive whole, I think it's very entertaining. I'd recommend it to my closest friends and people who enjoy thrillers. I mean, that's pretty much all I can say. You can sit through it. You can make it. Matt, you made it. I made it. Now, walking out, you might have different feelings about it because of the length. I don't think you're ever, while you're in the movie theater, I don't think you're going to hate it. Maybe when you walk out, when you think about it, you might be like, wow, I spent a lot of time in that movie theater. If you want to use time as the biggest detractor from the film, I can agree with that. Mm-hmm. But I personally, for the story's sake, I was glad to see Affleck back on the screen. Yeah. I was glad to see he's still alive and well. And I think this rivals his performance in The Town. I think it truly does. I think Ben killed it.
Right. So my thoughts on the movie. I feel like this is a movie, honestly, even though I have the critiques, and I'm on the it was good, not great side of things. I personally think you need to go see this movie. I think everybody should go see this movie because it has a lot of great messages and it has a great acting. It has, even though the second act kind of dwindles down, that first act alone is worth the price of admission.
Exactly.
And it is worth sitting for 2.5 hours with your butt hurting watching this movie. It's one of those movies that it's like the modern day thriller, and it's masterfully done, and I feel like it was just a fantastic cohesive whole.
And just for reference, the next 3 movies I'm planning on buying is Days of Future Past, because that's out, Guardians of the Galaxy when that comes out, and then Gone Girl. That's where I'm ranking it right underneath Guardians of the Galaxy and, 2 of the biggest blockbuster hits of the summer and technically kind of fall almost. But,
yeah.
And then Gone Girl, which, okay, right before we close, I just want to say that I thought 2014 was going to be one of the worst years ever for movies. Because I looked at the lineup and I'm like, Guardians and Days of Future Past. That's it. But we got some great... What?
Captain America.
And Captain America. That was... and then we got some great movies. We got Enemy, I believe. I don't know if that came out in 2013 or not. No. Prisoners came out in 2013. Enemy. We got Enemy. A fantastic, almost indie-ish Jake Gyllenhaal film. We got that. You haven't seen that yet. You need to watch it. We got Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America, and we got Days of Future Past. And now we have Gone Girl, I think, to put in that great movies of 2014. And I'm interested to see what's going to surprise me next. I've been Josh.
And I'm Matt. And don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, and tell all your friends about the Nerd Corner.